is.
It's not a pet peeve. It's just silly. Okay. Oh, transition. There we go. They did hear me say it's not a pet peeve. It's just silly. So that's at the
Are we
top
talking
of
about
this.
your? Are we talking about your face?
Yeah, I knew that was coming. Too easy. Too easy.
I'm, if anything, consistent.
Reliable. It's a good trait.
Reliable.
Yeah. Ah, you know what? I know for sure that my wife was in this chair last. Oh, that's why I feel so short. Okay, I'm back.
Okay, let's talk about Are we doing this?
Yeah,
the
let's do
unscripted
this.
Yeah.
episode of
It is
Wildly
unscripted. We can
unscripted
talk about whatever
episode.
the hell we want.
We gotta talk about a
Or-
couple things actually at the top. So,
Well, then you guys do the topping. I'm gonna do the
the
teeth
brushing of
brushing.
the teeth. Yeah. So you can
Okay.
fix everything. The first thing I want to talk about is apologies for last week's episode. One, it came out late, and two, only half of it came out in the audio. So I don't know how that happened, but it should be fixed by now. We did definitely get run over by life. I think we mentioned it in that episode. It just got way too busy.
Last week. Well, the last 2 weeks got the best of us.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And I mentioned in last week's episode that I crashed my motorcycle on Saturday, and that was part of the delay, which is true. But then a whole bunch of other stuff happened this week, so we definitely called an audible and turned this into an unscripted episode, which is
Yes.
not
It's
what
a
was
week early,
planned.
but that's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, we'll just do a little switcheroo and do the topic that we had planned for this week next week, I think. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember
Yeah.
what we had planned for this week, though.
That's because we didn't have anything planned.
Oh, great. Perfect.
Because we
TBD.
decided very quickly that we were making this an unscripted episode. So we just didn't pick a topic.
No, I mean, at the
Yeah.
beginning of the month on our monthly news.
Oh, we were going to talk about Elon Musk and Twitter, which we can't, like, there's not a whole lot to talk about now because he's backpedaling like a motherfucker.
He's backpedaled, and then he's front pedaled, and then he's backpedaled again, and now he's hiring a bunch of lawyers to do, like, he wants, like, to quote, cutthroat lawyers to do extreme litigation, and I don't know if that's for Twitter or for Tesla or for what. And then he came out as a Republican, which makes about as much sense as, like, flies, or how about this one, as trees coming out in favor of the axe, to use an old metaphor that I've enjoyed a particular amount.
I have kind of always thought, though, that he's smacked of conservatism.
Well, I mean, he's
personally. I'm sorry, who are we talking about? I'm back.
Musky, Elon Musk.
Oh yeah, he like.
But like he like declared as a you know, as voting Republican now because Democrats are being divisive, I guess, which is just.
I thought he was libertarian. Like.
Well, I mean, for sure, I think that's what his practices have been previously. But like this idea that, I mean, we've talked about it a million times. This idea that Democrats are the ones being divisive it's crazy and like it's short-sighted. I don't know.
I mean, they are socially divisive against conservative values.
I guess.
But like everybody is. It's not like one group of people that's saying, no, we don't like you. It's literally everybody. You like, in order to be involved in politics anymore, you have to pick a side and you cannot cooperate with the other side.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like Republicans are being like, oh yeah, we're trying to reach across the aisle all the time. And our Democratic friends aren't, you know, contributing. It's actually currently the exact opposite. A ton of legislation has gone across the aisle that Republicans just won't support in any way. And the 50 vote threshold for the filibuster is holding everything up in the Senate. So
yeah.
And I don't know. It just seems crazy to me to blame Democrats for being divisive.
Yeah, but how much stake do you put into Musk's, his political standing?
I'm not like, I don't think it's meaningful. I just think it's I think it's silly on his part. I just think it's short-sighted. I mean, why would you come out for a party that is consistently working against green energy and policies that will support your primary company?
Maybe he is trying to get them in to start talking to him so he can get them to support his company. I mean, how you can't convince people to change if you don't say, yeah, I can see some of your points. I agree with some of the stuff. I support your ideas. Now you support mine. So maybe he's seeing it as a longer term, like getting Republicans to actually give a shit about green energy.
I think that Elon Musk has zero concept of money and how it actually works. And the idea that he's supporting a party that could be harmful to his business doesn't even occur to him. I think that he cannot conceptualize a world in which he will not have enough money. So the rest of that doesn't matter. Like what could they possibly do in his mind that will hurt?
God, goals. Let's get on that money level.
I mean, I support whoever I want because I've got so much fuck you money that I can say it to anybody.
Yeah, I have a sneaking suspicion that he's pretty far on the neurodivergent spectrum.
Oh, he's 100% autistic.
Yeah, didn't he admit it?
Yeah, like he's autistic.
In an interview.
So like that,
or not admit it.
Him not even
I have come out as autistic.
Yeah. No. It doesn't surprise me because he thinks what he thinks and he believes what he believes, and how that affects other parts of the business, I don't know that it even occurs to him.
Yeah,
I heard through the grapevine that he's actually not like he's pulling away from Tesla anyway, and he's going to go play off with this other new stuff that he's doing. He just has a lot of ideas, and so he's kind of like given up on Tesla. So
well, I don't know if it's so much that he's given up on Tesla as like he doesn't. One, it's closer to being self-sustaining than it's ever been. He doesn't need to invest as much energy to keep it running, but also he doesn't. It's the ADHD mentality. And I'm not saying he has it, but it's like it's the new shiny, the new dopamine rush. So.
Well, he could actually fix Tesla's quality assurance and also their promise that if you order a Tesla in October, you're going to get it by January, because that didn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's a ton of problems with Tesla as a company, but they enjoy the benefit of being first to the flag. So they basically, even though they weren't the first electric vehicle company, they have so much hype and so much support for what they've already done, they can kind of take advantage of the fact that they're not meeting their own promises. Like if Ford tried to do something like that with their new electric vehicles, they would be absolutely screwed. And they're already in trouble because they have to like push deadlines and stuff on the Lightning. But I don't know.
Tesla's not going to get 69,000 of my dollars. They got 200 of them, and I canceled my Tesla order so they can pound sand. Not because I don't like Tesla. It's because I want solar on my house first.
That's fair. And I mean, they lost their opportunity to take your money because they did mess up.
Yeah, they did. And they delayed it by so many months. And I understand, supply chain and the batteries and all that kind of stuff. But by the time that they were like, hey, you need to schedule your vehicle pickup, I'm like, I already have like solar in the works. My money is going over here instead. So anyway, whatever. They get $200 for free. And then I get to tell everyone on a podcast that their customer service sucks. It's fine.
So I can't believe I used to think that Elon Musk was somebody to emulate in my private life. So there we go. Boom. Nailed it. Topic title. I did. I used to really highly admire Elon Musk. Really, really.
I did too. He was on my list of like people you would want to have dinner with.
Yep.
But mainly that was so I could get him to fall in love with me, and then I take all of his money.
I'm not sure that fits the topic for this episode.
No, I
can't believe you used to think that I wanted to steal from Elon Musk.
I can't believe you used to think that Elon Musk would fall in love with you.
No, that
Ooh.
I did admire him and his work ethic and like what he was trying to do supposedly with the world. So I understand that. And then he came more into the limelight in the past like 2 years, and I'm like, I
Yeah,
don't
not so
know.
much. There's a lot of
Yeah.
problematic stuff going on, and I don't know. The more I learn about how Tesla operates and the way certain groups within the company are treated or claim to be treated, it's just there's a lot of problems. A lot of problems. So I'm just doing what I do and pulling back from my support for that particular company until either there's positive change or everything that has been claimed is disproven. But until there's some sort of resolution, I'm just twiddling my thumbs. So.
Well, Robin, what did you used to believe that you can't believe you believed?
Oh God, I was such an asshole. So I used to go on these giant long rants about how people should have to take competency tests before they voted or had children.
Oh, you racist.
I know, right?
Right? So racist.
I was on a tear. I mean, I've always been mad because I feel like people will vote. I'm mad at single issue voters, right?
Mm.
No matter what that issue is. So at the time, I was mad that Black people would vote for Barack Obama just because of who he was, not consider. I voted for him. I really liked his politics, but I was mad that there were so many people out there because at that time, conservative news media was making a joke out of it, and they would go and ask people on the street, "Who are you voting for?" And they would say Barack Obama. Well, why? And like they couldn't answer, like
Yeah.
they could not respond. And so I realize the error of my ways now and that I was an absolute and complete asshole
When did you
because,
think this?
oh gosh, it would have been what,
2007,
2008?
8.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, and like that people should have to take tests before they had children. And I was a real intellectual elitist at that point. I understand now why that was not great, not a good perspective. Um, but
If this is one of the first episodes that you've jumped in for to Fireside, probably doesn't make sense why I would call her racist after saying
oh
there should
yeah,
be testing and stuff for
yes,
voting. But we've talked about it in the past is that oftentimes these like literacy tests, these ideas about competency have been used in order to keep marginalized or
yes,
subjugated communities from the polls because they had earned quote unquote the right to vote, but people didn't want them to, so they would introduce barriers to voting to the polls. And
right,
if you were coming out of slavery and had never been educated to read, and you're children of former slaves and also might struggle to read, and then this generational, what I don't know, behind the curve, I don't know how else to put it, where you're
yeah,
struggling to catch up to what people who were in power and who enjoyed the benefits of education and being full members of society kind of know because of their position and because they weren't slaves. Introducing a test is like it's expressly unfair and a targeted sort of policy
yeah.
that disproportionately affects minority communities.
Right,
And in
but
in the places where they had those, they weren't standardized, right? So it was the person who was handing out the ballots,
Yeah.
and they might ask the white person in front of me, what do you get when you mix red and yellow? And they're like orange. And then they might ask me, spell anti-disestablishmentarianism,
Yeah.
right? Like the tests were applied unfairly, and yeah.
We have an
when
episode
it
where we talked about it a while back. Sorry.
Mhm.
when it comes to requiring people to take tests before they have children, does that link to the sterilization of minorities and how we were?
No, I just, now that I have raised children, I understand a lot of the struggles that a lot of people go through. At that point, I was just mad because I didn't like the idea that people would have babies and not take good care of them. And I still don't like that.
Yeah.
But I also, again, I understand the burden of asking people to go through that process before doing something like having a child. I understand after doing more research, especially, with this Roe v. Wade question that has been a question for so long, I understand the long-term consequences of trying to regulate something like that. And just, I feel like I'm a more compassionate and understanding person now than I was back then in 2008 when I had my first child.
See, that's interesting because I, have half raised a child at this point. A third raised a child.
33% done.
Somewhere in there.
Some maths. And yeah, sometimes I wish that some people would also be tested before they have children, but then I'm like, man, would I even pass that?
Right.
Every day I'm like, man, am I ready to have a child as I look at my 7-year-old?
And what it comes down to for me is I realize now I don't wish that people had to take a test before they had children. I wish that people were more aware and more understanding of the responsibility of raising children.
And
like I wish that we could change
support.
people.
Yeah. Because
Well,
I think a lot of the problems that parents run into is because we do not have support in a capacity that makes it sustainable for our mental health and our children's health at all.
Yeah.
And there's some underlying problems with this sort of mentality, again, of testing. Aside from the again, disproportionate impact that would have on disadvantaged communities, there's also the presumption that every pregnancy is an intentional pregnancy. Yeah. And in a society where we do our level best to provide the worst sex education in the world for a developed country,
yes.
It seems, there's a feeling, it might not be reality, but there are a lot of people
on it.
There are a lot of people that just don't understand how you get pregnant. And it sounds crazy to say it out loud, but the prevalence of myths like you can't get pregnant if you're standing up, you can't get pregnant if you have sex in a jacuzzi, you can't get pregnant after dark. Like there's all sorts
gremlin sex. What kind of sex?
After midnight. No. There's just like there's so many. There's so much ignorance in the world about sexual health, reproductive health, cycle systems. I was reading a Reddit post, again, not very scientific, but it's just a story about how a woman found out that her boyfriend thought her period came on the 15th of every month.
And that all women's did.
And
I saw that too.
Every woman's came on the 15th.
Bless his heart.
I wish.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to reproductive health as it is, that I've never run into someone that thought these kinds of ridiculous things before, but I do know that. Oh, I'm gonna actually save that for the Roe v. Wade episodes. So never mind. No, I haven't. Thank God. Or they just didn't bring it up to me because they knew I'd ridicule them into the ground.
Well, yeah, and as a society, we need to be better about doing those things.
What?
But if people are afraid to ask questions, they're never going to.
Just a valve on the 15th I just crack open, and it's Niagara Falls for whatever.
If only it were that easy to plan for it,
I know.
But yeah, it's just we don't prepare people to understand just how to just pregnancy in general.
Yeah.
And
then we restrict access to the resources that allow for intentional planning and prevention of pregnancy.
So I think Robin saw this on Facebook because I was trying to get my tubes tied, and I, as someone with really good health care and someone who's got enough money and access to things, and I have a car, I can drive myself places, I have been struggling to get this appointment because I've been consistently turned away from places because they're like, yeah, we don't do that because it goes against, because one of the main hospitals in San Diego is actually Catholic, And so they're like, no, we don't do that. And I'm like, wait, what? You're my OBGYN. What do you mean you don't do that? So they've had to move me to another person. It was like a 3-month wait. Long story short, I'm not getting a tubal, but I don't know how deep we want to go into like birth control here. But the doctor specifically said that even if I get a tubal, the likelihood that I'm going to come back in for birth control anyway is really high, because getting a tubal means that, you know, your body is just going to produce all the stuff it normally does without any sort of hormonal support. And once you have a kid, your like system is just wrecked. So she was like, the number of people who get tubals and then come back in because they can't handle their cramps or all the bleeding or whatever, and they just get put on birth control anyway to help them not have such miserable lives, is really high. She was like, so I'm just going to suggest this other type. And so I'm going with a different like pathway, but like, I didn't know like any of that. And she was just like, yeah, like the number of women who struggle even after having tubals and still need birth control is really astronomical. So she's like, I will do a tubal for you. It's just, you know, your life is still going to probably be miserable. So I was like, oh, good to know. But yeah, it took me like 6 months to get that appointment.
Yeah.
It seems
Yeah.
this is a topic that I want to do more research on and learn more about, but it still seems crazy to me that a doctor can refuse to treat somebody based on the doctor's personal religious beliefs, because to me that
This
seems
was
like
the hospital.
well
the
whole
whole system.
hospital, but a doctor would have performed it, you know, however you want to phrase it, a hospital system, an individual doctor, whatever. It's weird to me that they can say, no, I'm not going to do that for you, because then their religious beliefs are preempting your self-determination and individual rights to control your body, your bodily autonomy. And it just seems...
John, I'm a woman. I don't have body autonomy.
Well, that's true, of course.
Right.
I am here for babies.
Yeah. In fact,
Well, but we
you're
talked about
lucky
it.
that I allow you to be on the podcast and talk at all.
Yeah.
So,
Jesus
There you
Christ,
go.
John.
hey, you started this joke train. I'm just bringing up the caboose. So,
We talked about it in last week's episode. Well, parts of it that people can hear. When we talked about the office of what conscious and religious freedom or something like that.
Yeah.
That basically Trump created an entire department to allow people to do that, to say, I'm not going to treat you because it goes against my religious freedom.
Yeah.
And it's
I don't know. It's just like...
should
It's
you be allowed
interesting
to be a
because I guess
doctor?
people can try to apply the same argument to the cake baking incident.
Mhm.
Like, we shouldn't force people to do something that, and like when it comes to businesses, yeah, whatever, just go to another business maybe. But the healthcare and human life aspect
Yeah.
is much different than a cake.
Well,
So
I mean, to me, it kind of seems like if you can't... This is not a fully fleshed out thought, so bear with me, because there might be
are any of them
lot
fully
plot
fleshed
holes.
out, John?
No, I am just a random synapse firing and putting words together, and there's nothing that's actually deep or processed that comes out of my mouth. To me, your job is to help people be healthy, to help people make decisions about their overall health, and to guide them down the path that allows them to maintain the most autonomy over their body as possible without harming them, right? It's one of the tenets that we hold above almost everything else, is that a person has a right to control their body. And if you are interested in the medical field, the medical profession, but you are not willing to help a person down that path of bodily autonomy, right, because of a personal belief, you need to find a different profession, because you are not capable of doing the job. If I were a mechanic and I didn't like doing oil changes because of a religious belief, people would be like, well, you can't be a mechanic.
Yeah, I mean, there are schools that have had their medical students, their residents say, well, I'm not comfortable, helping members of the gay community. And
Not too bad.
Their
Not
people
gonna
are
be a
like,
doctor.
don't be a doctor.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
here to help people.
Like,
So,
I mean, sucks to suck, but we're allowing institutions to support biases. If we say, yeah, okay, that's fine. We just are, and that's like,
it's not just it's more nuanced than
well, of
what we're
course.
stating here, though. Well, because I mean, you can apply that to other aspects of our autonomy for health. Like, if we want a healthy nation, yet we allow all these garbage foods, and then, you have medical experts that say we should limit the sugar that's in foods, we should limit processed stuff. And then people are like, well, no, it's my body. I get to do what I want with it. You start bumping up against the autonomy of health versus, well, like, who
Well,
dictates what's best. That's why
yeah, I'm not sure that that's contradictory to what I'm feeling here, is because like the doctor can't force you to not eat Pringles.
no, but when it comes to initiating regulations against um, the food industry for what they're putting inside of our food, then people get up in arms about it.
There, I would say there are significant studies that support that an unhealthy population is not only bad for the overall well-being of a country,
Oh, yeah, totally.
but it it puts an undue burden on the individuals within that country, in terms of like tax load, where your money's going. It's
Yes.
expensive to have an unhealthy population. So the government does have an interest in saying, well, we are going to regulate food.
Well,
But
does the
I
government
don't
not
think you
also?
can make that same argument about the government saying that a person can refuse to provide, what is it called, like a tubal litigation, is that the official
I think it's
term?
ligation.
Ligation, but yes.
Ligation. tubal
Litigation.
tubal a tubal
You
court
shall
trial,
not
Sue
right, tubal
my
ligation. I
sue my
was
tubes.
I was within the ballpark, but in the wrong field there. But like I can't think of, and I could be wrong on this, but I can't think of like any overriding public health reason to do that. And people
If I'm
might
not
say,
producing babies, then where are the taxpayers
and
coming from?
that might be the argument that is given, but at the same time, the government can't force you to have children. So how is that any different? The government can't say, well, for public health, you need to get pregnant.
I feel like the public health's going to go down if there's a lot more pregnant women around. My
I
God.
mean, there's. I'm just saying there'll probably be a lot more dead men. One way or the other.
Anyway, that was a weird ride in my own body autonomy. Cause I'm like, it's 2022. Can I not please just get this done?
Yeah, and I know hearsay. So again, I'm not sure exactly how true this is, but some of my friends in Missouri couldn't get a tubal ligation without having a significant other sign off on it.
Mm-hmm. That's very normal.
But
That wasn't
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't a factor in mine.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I feel like it's not going to be as big of a deal in California as Missouri.
She didn't even ask anything. She was just like, "What do you want?"
Crazy.
Felt like that scene in The Notebook. What do you want? I don't know.
No. What? um, but I don't know. So this has been occupying my thoughts a lot lately. Is like, how do we balance? Because I don't want to make somebody who has a truly deeply held religious belief do something that they're not doing, or that they don't want to do. But I also don't think that they should be allowed to force somebody else to not do something that they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, think about all of our jobs. Do we not have things in our jobs that we really don't like doing? Like, not that because we don't like it, because we don't like want to do it, but we still do it because it's the
Right.
job, and we don't like. I mean, you're not gonna like every aspect of your job. There's certain things that I'm like, I do not agree with this, but I'm
But I
going to
do
do it. It's
it.
my job.
Yeah.
I'm gonna grumble about it with people who are not my coworkers, but
I'm still going to do my best to make sure it gets done right.
oh,
Like,
for sure.
and
I
like,
don't do
yeah,
stuff.
but I don't know if I went to my job and I was like, listen, just joined a religion and we don't write reports. It's kind of against our whole
Can I join
thing.
your religion?
Like, I
Can
will
I
go to
please
hell
join?
if I write a report. So just going to say no. Like, I'd be fired because
Yeah.
I'm not doing my job. I wouldn't be fired if it were truly a religious belief. That would be a whole thing and a deal. But like, I definitely, there would be problem, but we just allow that when it comes to people's health. And it's just, I don't know. It's just wild to me.
It is
Wild
crazy.
to me.
Can I talk about what I used to believe as of 3 days ago?
Yes.
Yeah, I know where this is going. Please go on.
Please do.
All right. Well, so I'll let me set the stage. So I am speaking to my boss about something work related, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I feel like I really got gypped on this," and um, she's like, "Don't say gypped," and I'm like, "Huh?" And like it caught me off guard because I was just like, "That's I can't use this word," and like, but she said it and then continued the conversation in like completely. She wasn't shaming me or whatever. She was just like, "Use a different word," and I'm like, "Why can't I use this word?" And I'm like, "Let's back this conversation up. Why can't I use gypped?" And she was like, "Because of the connection to the Roma people. It's very you know, uh, insulting of them." And I'm like, what? Because, and this is the thing, and I was trying to explain this to John and Robin in the text, is that I thought gypped was spelled Jipped, and that was just supposed to be the word. That is not the word. That is not how you spell it. And evidently it is Gyped, and it comes from the Roma people and the slur of gypsy. Because if you were gypped on something, it was because the Roma people had stolen from you. And anyway, my mind was blown because I had not even remotely thought of that word because in my mind just spelled it out differently. It was like not related at all. And I was just like, huh, oh crap. Like, how often
Oh
have I said
no.
Right.
this?
And in your
Racist.
defense, I think I'm pretty confident that I have seen it spelled the J way
Yeah.
before. I think that there's a whole group of people who literally have no idea that that is where that came from and have spelled it
Mm-mm.
phonetically, and it's kind of like got two lives. There's like the group of people who know where it comes from and are, try to be sensitive to that, and then there's this whole group of people who, it's like when you call somebody a geek
Yeah.
and they have no idea that that came from like a circus sideshow thing where people used to eat weird things for money because they were being exploited. Like, people, it has no connection anymore to that in American culture.
I was like, of
Yeah.
course, this would come up with my boss.
Yeah. Oh, great. Cool. Anyway,
It's
here's my
okay.
resignation.
That was the second most embarrassing portion of that conversation. So it got worse.
Are you going to share? You're just going to tantalize us with that. Share your shame to the world.
No, this was,
You don't have to share.
no, I was just, no, her sister died 2 years ago.
Wow.
And
Now I feel terrible.
yeah, I did too. When it happened, it was like, the height of COVID, unrelated to COVID, but yeah, it's very sad. And I was mentioning the story writing nonprofit that I'm involved with now, So Say We All. And I was, I'm excited about it. And I want people to go and write stories in San Diego. And I was like, yeah. She was like, yeah, my sister wrote for them. And I was like, oh, she should write another story.
Oh.
And she immediately burst into tears. And anyway, I felt like a huge asshole. Anyway, it was like the worst
Oh my goodness,
conversation
that
with,
happens.
and I just felt like the biggest dick. And
I've
Yeah.
done similar. Like, one of my best friends' mom passed a few years ago, and like, I was there. I went to the funeral. I helped out all day so I could be with him. And then like a few months back, it might have been a year ago now, like, we were playing video games and he said something and I was like, your mom, does the thing. And he's like, John, my mom is dead. And I was just like, well,
Yeah.
like, where
and
do
like,
you
what
go
do you,
from that?
yeah,
Like, I was just
exactly.
like, yeah, I'm just a giant asshole and I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible person. Please forgive
Definitely
me.
have
Especially
made
because
your
I was
mom
like,
jokes to
I was like,
people.
I didn't know that. And she was like, you sent me a condolence letter. And I'm like, I just need to shut up. It was really rough. But if anyone is in San Diego, if you want to go write for So Say We All and you're not dead, then please.
Wow. What a plug.
Even if you are, that might be a great
I mean,
story.
honestly, yeah, if you are dead and want to
I
write.
know.
then-
The executive director was like, well, that's a perspective we've never had before. So we feel like interested in that. Oh, God.
That's just, I mean, honestly, like, end of the day, that's one of those human foibles that feels so bad in the moment, but it's ultimately not mean-spirited in any way. It's just, it's hard to keep track of everybody's relationships all the time. But yeah, so embarrassing.
So me using the gypped word was the second worst part of that conversation.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to leave this. I hate when that happens where you leave a room and you're like, I did not do my best work.
Yeah. We're going to revisit this whole thing and just give it a few weeks to cool down, and I'll be back.
But yeah, I'm glad I learned that about that word, because that's like one of my go-to words, and I'm just like, wow, have I just been being this racist asshole for a while and no one called me out on it until I'm 32 years old. Anyway, yeah, now I know, and I will try to do better. So I can't believe I used to think that you spelled that word with a J.
Blurry man in the background. I see him walking. I see that. He thinks he's hidden, but he ain't. And there he goes.
He also can't hear you.
I know. It's fine. He'll watch this later and no, he won't, but he might.
He's a listener, not a watcher.
Yeah. Hey, that's fine. So that, I think, do you want to hear I'm going to make you feel better, Savannah. I'm going to tell you something that I used to think, and I can't believe I used to think this, and it's possibly one of the most racist things in the world.
Do go on.
Not in the world, but it's pretty racist. All right. So, I was like 13, 14, very young, growing up in Southwest Missouri. So I'm definitely a product of my environment here, but I definitely used to truly believe that black people had an extra muscle in their legs somewhere connected to the knee that allowed them to run faster and jump higher than white people.
Wow,
Truly
John.
believed it. Yeah. And like, to me, it wasn't even like it didn't even register as like a racist thing. It's just like it's a difference that allows them to perform better. Okay. But like,
we need a reason for them to be just better at sports than white people. What the heck, John?
well, if you're a racist, you do, because it doesn't make sense unless they have some sort of advantage, but like,
we should
in the system.
We should have a podcast, What My Family Told Me About X Race, and just out our families with how awful it is.
I don't want to self-flagellate that much, and it's just, that's pretty rough.
I have not even heard that that muscle claim before. I'm not even.
There's like variations on it. So apparently that one's actually, I'm not going to say it's common, but I wasn't the only person to think that. I obviously heard it from somewhere, and it's not like a new thing. I've also heard like muscle fiber in black people is different. The densities are different. Slow twitch versus fast twitch is different. Like things like that to explain better athletic performance among perceived better athletic performance among the population. But there's never like, it just seems so, now that I'm older and I kind of have been looking at how entire systems and chains and like how something that happened 100 years ago can influence the progression of an entire family, an entire, branch of people,
Biology wise.
Well, not just not necessarily biology, but just like performance wise.
Are you talking? Well, you said family.
Development
context.
Wise, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I don't mean, sorry. I mean family, not genetic family. I mean just like a literal, like my great grandfather and grandfather and like.
We need context when we're talking about
Yeah, no, thank you. That's smart. I've already outed myself as a previous racist. I really don't want anybody to believe that I am a current one either. Actively working to uproot these preconceived or these old notions. But like there are certain factors that change the way we grow up and the way we develop physically as a human being, that are different based on the physical location you grow up in, the availability to certain activities, the options you have as a family, as a child, right? The extracurriculars that you can do, the nutrition that you have, exactly. That these are different for people. And if there is any athletic performance difference, which I highly doubt, I think there is, you'll find with a controlled sample and population and similar stimuli, you'll find similar performance across a group, right? If there's any difference, it has everything to do with the choices that were made in the development of an individual throughout the course of their life than anything genetic. And
I want to challenge that.
No, the importance of, I'm not going to say there's no genetic component to athletic performance. I'm saying that across broad population groups, you will be statistically similar, right? There's not going to be a divergence between a black group and a white group, given the similar situation. There are obviously genetic triggers that can make somebody perform better. Look at Michael Phelps, who processes lactic acid different than a normal human being. But I don't think
they're like individual genetic differences rather than
the population based.
Yeah. So
and then, I was gonna. I'm sorry. I just want to tie it off because this is important. Whenever the total of those combined factors, like what is available to you, the decisions that you can make, where you can go in life, are limited or otherwise reduced from some up here in a different social class, I feel like you see more people pursuing a proven pathway to success. So you see a stronger emphasis on certain skills and abilities placed on children within certain classes, and it has nothing to do with race. It has to the perceived path to success and what can provide for my family.
I feel like we're getting into a nature versus nurture topic here. What I was going to mention, 23andMe changed like what you could exactly look at with your genetics and everything. But 23andMe did used to tell you what kind of muscle fibers you had and what it was more prone to be able to do. This is not race related, but it is genetic related. And so, yeah, because there are different muscle types, and I did want to bring that up. But it's
I was not fast twitch, but not fast twitch muscles.
My point being that, like, if you had 8,000 people from one group and 8,000 people from another group, you would find a pretty statistically similar distribution of fast to slow twitch muscle fiber. It wouldn't be based on like just the color of their skin, basically, because that's racist. That's
well, I'm glad basically. You're not racist anymore, John.
Well, continually working to be anti-racist, I think, is the better way to put it, because I don't want to pretend like I'm better than any of the groups that we talk about, because I am part of these groups and I have a lot of inbuilt and subconscious biases that I might not even know about until somebody shines a light on them. So,
you should read Blink by Malcolm Gladwell.
It's on my list. I already added it because of you. So
we should all read it and then do a podcast episode.
Let's do it.
Oh boy.
What?
All right. Well, no, because like if we're gonna do like a book report podcast thing, like I got to do notes. I got to take. It's gonna be a thing.
So you're gonna have to have like 3 months to study up for this thing.
Probably.
We got to start doing these. Like Robin has it on one of the session breakdowns, and I love it. I think we should have book report podcast for specific books.
I'm fine doing that. If we want to do it.
Have you read it, Robin?
I have not.
Okay. Would you be interested in that one?
I like Malcolm Gladwell.
Okay. Me too.
I talked a really long time about that particular racist thing that I used to think, and I don't know if Robin, you had any thoughts on that, but I would sure appreciate any input from you at this point.
So he's off his soapbox.
Yeah.
No, I think we all have grown up with that kind of thing. I grew up literally being told that Native American people were allergic to alcohol. And that's why they couldn't handle it when they drank, and they got, like, that's why there was such a high percentage of alcoholic people in Native American communities and all of that kind of stuff, that they genetically can't handle their alcohol. And I mean,
That's
I grew
actually...
up where I grew up, there are large populations of Native American people, and so that's kind of the group that we heard all of the dumb rumors about. But there are things that we don't know we're wrong about, and because for the most part they can be harmless, like it is not harmful or hurtful to think that maybe Black people have an extra muscle in their knee, like that's not derogatory, that's not being mean to anybody in any sort of way, but we just don't know these things until we are brave enough to say them out loud and have them challenged. Yeah. So
I will say, you mentioned, I never heard that Native populations were allergic to alcohol, but so I want you to take a look at the especially white coloration of my skin right now, and understand that I was raised my entire life with the mythology that I was descended from Native tribes, and truly embraced that for a while. A whole other thing. Still don't know if that's true or not. I'm leaning towards not. But I was
told the same thing.
Well, a lot of people in the South,
however,
and southern part of the United States were.
My mom does have Native American blood in her. I have none. So interesting.
The way that genetic expression works, actually, so I've learned quite a bit about it since doing 23andMe, which I got to do for free when it very first came out, because they really wanted a better sampling of African American genetics. So if you were Black, you got to do 23andMe for free when it first came out. Right. So I did that a long time ago, but because my mom and her brother have a very similar issue. They are full blood siblings, and if you look at their ancestry profiles on 23andMe, they're different. He has more expression of like French and German, and she's got more of the Scandinavian, but they are full blood siblings. It should match, but it doesn't. No, because of the genes that express, and if the ancestry marker is on this other gene marker that expressed, your mom may have it show up, but you don't.
Exactly. She's got Arab, Indigenous American. And I mean, you do a side-by-side comparison about like what they have versus what you have. And I have stuff from my biological father's line that obviously she would not have. But he overwrote that portion of the gene strand, and which is interesting. So yeah, I did descend from a line of Native Americans, but I am not Native American at all.
Yeah. Well,
anyway, go ahead.
Having that genetic component, nobody here thinks that makes you in any way part of Native heritage or anything like that. Right. Just to be super duper clear. But my family told me growing up that I could never drink alcohol because I would be predisposed to alcoholism because of having Native American blood, which is like, again, it wasn't ever a racist thing. It wasn't a judgment, but it is inherently racist. So
right.
It's just, I don't know. I can't believe I used to think that either. There's a lot of like subtle eugenics that happen in the mid-South, South part of this world. It's probably across the nation, but especially in America, like there's just these like beliefs that aren't ever they're never questioned because you're either expressing it to somebody who agrees with you or taught you that, or you just never had an opportunity to learn otherwise. It's just,
My family was flat out racist.
well, and then there are racists in this world, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was attracted to a black man when I was younger, and I was
Mortal
told,
sin.
I was told that if I ever dated a black man, that my dad would shoot us both and bury us in the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that tracks. And that's why when I see videos of a man being hunted down in a Georgia neighborhood, I have no questions about whether or not that was racially motivated.
100%.
Yeah.
Georgia's very, very racist.
Yeah. So, and it's not just Georgia. Not to pick on one state.
And we can pick on it. Well, because it's not in, like, that is firsthand knowledge of how racist it is.
Yeah.
People have asked me why I don't want to move back, and I'm like, oh, no.
I don't identify with that culture at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, started out light, ended up with discussions about eugenics and family history and belief. Another classic fireside breakdown.
Yeah. But wait.
Oh, wait.
We're missing a story here.
You want me? Are we gonna
Let's
explore
do
this?
it.
I thought we were waiting for it to be recording.
Okay.
We don't have
So
to. We don't have to.
this doesn't neatly fall into the I can't believe I used to think category, but I do want to talk about it here because I think it's a important thing to discuss and to continue bringing awareness to the general public. I'm certain that about 50% of the listening population is like, no, we're always aware of this particular threat because you kind of gotta be. But again, I'm a white dude, so I live in a different world a lot of times, and I wasn't like particularly worried about this. So on Wednesday, I was roofied. I was drugged while out at an event, and I'll have to keep it really general, but suffice it to say, I was at a work event. We went to a baseball game, and before we went to with some of our partners, and before we went to the game, we all met up at a well-known bar and ordered some drinks. And I didn't have a lot to drink because, one, I know myself and I can't handle a lot to drink.
And it doesn't have to do with the fact you're Native American.
It does. It has zero fact to do with that, and everything to do with I was a very good boy growing up. I didn't drink until I was 21.
What a nerd.
I know, right? And so I never really developed any sort of tolerance. So which is fine, makes me a cheap date. But that's a problematic phrase.
Especially in this context.
Especially in this context, now that I think about it. Ooh.
Wow, John.
I know, right? So anyway, I had a couple of beers. I ordered a mixed drink, but ended up spilling probably 2/3 of it, somewhere in there, because if you've never watched, I like to gesture a lot with my hands when I talk, and I backhanded my drink at one point. And luckily, the partner we were there with has very good reflexes, and I did not spill it all over them. But so I drank maybe a third of that, and then I had half of another beer. So I had 2.5 beers and half of a mixed drink, which is enough for me to get a pretty good buzz for an hour or two before I start coming down. And I was done at that point. I had all of those drinks in the course of maybe an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. We began to walk over to the baseball game, which was right across the street from this bar. And as we were walking, I could feel myself, I was pretty tipsy, way beyond buzzed into drunk territory. And I was like, well, man, maybe that hit a little harder. Maybe I didn't drink enough water today or food, whatever. This is still manageable. I'll just have to make sure to eat and drink and not have any more alcohol from this point on. It took us maybe 15 minutes to walk to the booth, if that, maybe 10. We sat down, or well, I started stuffing my face with pretzels and sat down, and less than 30 minutes later, I couldn't focus my eyes. I went like cross-eyed. I couldn't talk without slurring my speech an incredible amount. And I never slur my speech because I'm a pedant about pronunciation, enunciation, that sort of thing. And I was like, the room was spinning. So I knew at that point that something was off. And I went to the bathroom to throw up because whatever was in my stomach, I didn't want to process it anymore. So I forced myself to throw up there, and it just kept getting worse and kept getting worse. So I just left the event. I went to go sit in an armchair away from everybody so nobody could see how drunk I was, because I didn't want to leave a bad impression. And it kept getting worse. And while I was sitting there, I've experienced the world spinning before, but this was like a full-on carousel. Everything was like crazy around me. So I had to find another bathroom. I locked myself in the stall, and I kept throwing up because at that point I was super dizzy. When I went into the stall, it was like 7:30, 7:45 maybe. It was still daylight out, is the point. And when I was in there, I thought I was conscious the whole time. I remember a couple things. I know somebody walked in, but not to the stall, and I could hear people talking, but I couldn't understand English because I was so three sheets to the wind at that point. And when I left, I remember it was pitch black outside. It wasn't dusk. Like, the sun was fully set. And I think I remember an announcement about the 7th inning stretch. So I lost enough time that from like 30 minutes into the game to the 7th inning, I was in that stall. My only thought at that point was to get to a room and to find a door that could lock. So I went across the street to not a Howard Johnson, a Hampton Inn. They were full up. The nice guy at the counter pointing me to the Marriott down the block down the road. They had a room, thank God. I was able to get a room. I got to that room. I had to hold my hand against the wall so I could walk in a straight line. And all I remember is getting to the room, throwing up again. I think I took off my shoes, laid down, didn't even get fully in the bed. And then the next thing I knew, it was 3:30 in the morning. And at that point, I was sober, or at least I wasn't nearly that gone anymore, and got up and got an Uber back to my place, which is like an hour away. So this was a pretty far haul from home. I couldn't drive at all Thursday. I was dizzy the rest of the day. I felt I was just out of it the rest of the day. So I ended up going to the ER that night, and they tested. And this is important for people to know. Most of these drugs, they metabolize so quickly that unless you get a drug test, a drug screen, while you are experiencing symptoms, it's going to be gone. It'll be out of your system. So urine, blood, they couldn't find any trace of anything. And they performed a basic, ECGs to make sure my heart was okay, and, blood pressure, that sort of thing, pulse. But as I was describing this, because at first I thought I was just drunk. At first I thought I just got really, really drunk, and I just like lost control. And I was like ashamed. But as I was describing what happened to the nurses, and my blood test came back and it was at 0% alcohol, and I was still dizzy. And as I was explaining it to them, they're like, "No, that is point for point what it was. That is like being drugged. It sounds like you were drugged." So that happened to me when I was at a work event with a bunch of other people, and nobody saw it, nobody noticed. And I think it was in that mixed drink, if I had managed to drink that whole thing, I would have been in a coma, as hard as it hit me, with just the little that I did drink.
Well, how much do you weigh?
About 185.
Okay, so the Can I tell my story?
Yeah.
Because it'll help put more context to yours for sure. I was also roofied back in 2018. I went to a gay bar that is notorious for being the best gay bar in San Diego, and I was dancing, and I had a mixed drink also, and I had one drink and then maybe 3 sips of another drink, which is insane to me. And like I had kept it on me the whole time, but I was dancing on the dance floor. And so if you are dancing and you're holding your drink around, like it, unless there's something over the lid of it, it could easily be done. Um, and like John said, within, for me, it was probably without about 15 minutes after me finishing this drink, I couldn't walk anymore. And the person that I was with asked me, she was like, "You don't look okay." And I was trying to go to the bathroom because I was like, I need to throw up. And I was, yeah, dizzy, couldn't, I was falling into everything.
Mm.
And I get to the bathroom. I try to make myself throw up. And then I leave the bathroom. And the last thing I remember was saying, I need to go home. And I pulled out my phone. And luckily, the Uber app was still open from the Uber we had taken there from the hotel we were at. And I just did the reverse. Like, it's like one button to press to do a reverse trip. And I was able to press the Uber button. And I do not remember anything else past that. I woke up 8 hours later in a hotel with my friend, and I couldn't breathe. I had to stick my finger between my teeth to keep my mouth open so I could breathe a little bit. And I was like, I'm not okay. And I went to the bathroom, and my body was purging out both ends. Just like it was, my body was like, you are being poisoned, essentially.
Yeah.
And my friend was like, "What's wrong with you? You can't hold your alcohol." And I was just like, maybe I took, like John said, you start doubting your ability to handle alcohol.
Yeah.
And it was embarrassing, and I was getting ridiculed for not being able to hold my alcohol. And I was like, I need to go to the hospital. There is something not okay. And I could barely like speak at all. I was still in like club clothes, like, not looking great. I took an Uber to the hospital on base, and I
This was eight
told
hours later. You were still feeling it.
8 hours later, and I was like, I'm not okay at all. I don't remember the 8 hours between there. And I went to the ER, and I was like, I think something was in my drink, because I had like made that connection. I was like, there's no way. And they're like, no, you're just drunk. So I had a very different hospital interaction than John did. They
Oh.
didn't test me. This was a military hospital also. Keep that in mind. So they didn't test me. They're like, you're just drunk. And I'm like, I swear to God, I'm not drunk. Like, this is not how this works. They didn't test me at all. They just kept me in a room while I continued to vomit and shit everywhere, essentially. And I was poisoned. Yeah, the military hospital sucks sometimes, but I stayed there for a while before I realized that they weren't going to help me, and I left. And I was talking to my friend, who is the forensics lead for the San Diego Police Department, like a week later. And I was telling her, like, yeah, I had a really bad experience. And she was like, what the fuck? Why didn't you tell me? And I'm like, well, I didn't think to, like, call up my friend, like, hey, by the way, I'm
I can barely
I think I
speak
just got
English right
drugged.
now. I think I was drugged. Yeah.
Well, right. And my reception at the hospital was very much like, oh, this person's just drunk.
Yeah.
Let's just put them away. And I'm like, yeah. So I'm glad you were able to get help. I did not.
Well,
They treated me like I was, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to give the wrong impression. The doctor and the actual and the final nurse that spoke with me both kind of leaned into that. Well, you probably just had too much to drink theory of things, which was annoying to me at that point because 3 other people had kind of confirmed. 3 other nurses, medical professionals, had confirmed what I began to question or had originally questioned as being the case, and it they've seen those symptoms a million times. So, but yeah, the doctor was like, well, alcohol can have these effects, and
No, it's not like my first fucking time drinking,
Yeah,
bro. Like,
and
I
that's
know
right.
what like that's what the difference is. Like, you can understand when you're tipsy versus I don't have control of any of my faculties after one drink.
Yeah,
Like that, there is a
That
much
yeah.
big difference.
yeah,
And like, Well, my friend that works for the forensics department was like, well, there are a string of roofing incidents at this bar, and they think it's the bartender, and they think the bartender's the one that, like, so she was like, I wish you had like, we could have had another case to point to this if you had if you had had the cops called, like they should have called the cops. And I'm like, well, I mean, I wasn't in any position to like fight anything.
Right.
I mean, I looked disheveled. I looked like absolute garbage showing up to the hospital, and like I was treated like, you know.
Like
But
you were
yeah,
just
it
drunk,
turned
yeah.
like I was just drunk, and like that was the very very disheartening experience. But yeah, so they were targeting women who looked wealthy enough so they could steal from them. That was the motive. So it was less sexual, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
And I was so fortunate that I was able to hit the Uber button and make it to like, but yeah, don't remember many hours of my life. And it was the worst feeling. The reason I asked how much you weighed though is that my friend said that the normal dosage for roofing is for 160 pounds, and they might have doubled yours. And I know that with mine, like I was in full out poisoned mode. Like it was too much for my weight.
Well, I don't think I was the intended target, actually.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I intercepted one that was meant for one of my coworkers because when we got there, she went to the bar alone about 5 or 6 minutes by herself. And then I came in after at the bar, and she turned again after being there alone for like 5 minutes. And she looked at me, she goes, "You want something to drink?" And I said, "Sure, I'll have whatever you're having." So she turned and told the bartender, "I'll have one more." The bartender said, "Okay." And then a moment later, her original drink that she ordered came. And because we'd ordered the same thing, she just turned and gave it to me because she's a nice person. And then she took the one that was intended for me. So she had mine and I had hers.
Was it the bartender also? That sounds like the bartender.
That sounds like the bartender.
Yeah. I mean, we can't definitively say that, obviously, and I don't want to make any accusations.
No, but that's like
but
you.
There was also time that potentially it could have been when my drink was by my side at the table and I was turned to talk to somebody else, that somebody could have got it. Theoretically possible as well. I tend to think that it happened with at the bar or with the bartender, but I can't prove it because I spilled my drink at one point. So if they put it in my drink after it was sitting on the table, then I probably spilled most of it out. But I'd had a little of it to drink before that point.
See, that's terrifying because like the dosages, like these people are just slipping in random shit. Like, yeah, and they don't. Well, are they even eyeballing it? Do they give a fuck? Like at that point, they don't care. It's like
you're over 150. We're gonna.
No one's being scientific about this.
No, they want to make sure that they're making you unconscious. They don't care how far it goes, and that's what's terrifying is that they also don't realize like you could be killing someone by doing this.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you can, a point to our listeners is watch your drinks getting made. They make covers that go on mixed drink cocktails where your like straw will just go through, and that will prevent some stuff. You can have like little. I'm talking about like the kind of like plasticky condom like lids that you can put on your drinks.
They make bracelets now, I think, that you wear like a hairband on your wrist, and when you take it off, you can put it over the top of your cup. So if the bar doesn't have one, you have a protective lid. And then I think they have a lot of products for testing your drinks. I know that there's like a nail polish that you can use that'll show up if you've been roofied. I might start painting my nails when I go to the bar.
There's also
just one.
You can look and see sometimes if your drink looks a little cloudy. But the lights in the club, man.
Yeah, I just want to be careful.
No,
advice
I know.
about like visual inspection stuff like that. Do not rely on that.
Don't rely on that. But that is like if it looks sus, like.
And if you have any question whatsoever about it, don't drink it.
Yeah.
Just don't.
Don't accept drinks from strangers. Don't. I don't know. That it was terrifying. I'm glad you were okay.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was really weird, and like the shame was the crazy part about it. Looking back on it on this side of it, like how ashamed I was that I couldn't, I guess, hold my alcohol in a professional environment, and like how I didn't want to like cause a scene. I still think, given the specific parameters of this particular visit, I should have done what I did, but I didn't want to ask for help because I didn't want that same sort of thing that you went through, where people were like, oh, he can't hold his alcohol, or he's just
Yeah.
drunk, and giving people that perception. And it kept me quieter than I probably should have been about the entire thing for the duration. So I was very, very lucky. I was very lucky.
I was
And if you
stumbling.
like a highly capable, both of you, highly capable, um, probably more educated in the correct steps to take in a situation like that than the average college student. Like, I can't imagine being a 21-year-old girl
Mm-mm.
and then carrying that weight of like, oh, I'm so embarrassed, I'm so ashamed, like I need to just go over it. Like, it's not, that's terrifying.
I'm still embarrassed when I think about how I was acting on the base because I had to walk through the gate,
Mm-hmm.
and I was again in club clothes. Yeah, and I mean, it, the EMTs looked at me and they were just like, "Oh, great, here's just like some drunk military wife that can't hold her shit." Like it was. I still feel shame when I think about that. When I was just like, I need help, and there's just the military young bunch of dumb idiots were, you know,
Wouldn't believe it.
definitely judging me for that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was.
Well, you do.
Yeah.
You shouldn't feel shame. It's not like
Well,
you chose to do that.
no, but like at the time, I was like, man, maybe I can't handle my
Oh yeah, you
alcohol.
question yourself.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, and I'm
question
like,
yourself.
what the fuck? Like, did I drink like 4 drinks and I don't remember that? Like, what? And I was just like, no, that's not true. And
Yeah.
I like asked for my friend. I was like, she was like, you only had 1 drink, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's ridiculous.
So it was pure Everclear. It was just the whole thing was
The whole
just
thing.
Everclear. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that you have that shame too.
Yeah. Actually, my chief at or my not mine, but my boss's boss at one point made a joke like that, like, wow, that drink must have been all Everclear. And I was like, well, yeah, you'd think, except for I didn't drink it. I spilled most of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that puts us over quite a ways. Any final thoughts before we go?
Well, yeah, I think just be very much be safe out there, y'all, with especially the new stuff that's coming up in party scenes that are pretty scary. So don't go alone, don't go unprepared, and do not feel shame about certain things, because even if you feel shame, it's better that you feel shame inside of an ER where they can take care of you than somewhere where
Yeah.
you don't have medical assistance.
Yeah. And even if you just think you're drunk, but you're too drunk, push for help. Because
Yes.
there's nothing wrong with demanding that somebody help you. All right? So
And
even if you just think you're drunk and you're just way too drunk, push for them to actually help you. All right? Fight for that. That's the best thing you can say, because you might not be drunk, you might be drugged. So
I didn't drink for a year after that.
yeah, just the thought of drinking right now makes me sick to my stomach. And I see shot glasses and my stomach does a little flip. It's weird. It's so weird. But yeah, I don't want to drink anything. So,
Being not in control of yourself is a very scary feeling.
yeah.
Well, that was happy.
Yeah. Just keep diving down into the seriousness on this one. So,
Okay, well, speaking of seriousness, you guys can check out our social media. We are on Instagram and Facebook, the Fireside Breakdowns. Check us out, follow us. You can become a member of our Patreon if you want to get our newsletters and be able to request topics that we will go over. And yeah, Robin.
that's right.
That's pretty much it. Firesidebreakdowns.com.
I had good news.
Leave us a
and it's out of
review
my head.
if you love us or you hate us or you want us to tell more stories. Then we would love it if you would leave us a review. You can do that on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. You can leave a comment on our Facebook page.
Oh, and you guys can tell us what's something you can't believe you used to think. 'Cause
Oh,
I'm
that would make
curious.
a
yeah.
great episode. I would love a mailbag episode where we read
Yeah,
some of
let
these
us
things.
know.
Yeah.
We
And
can
like,
read out some of the things that you guys used to think. And again, no shame because we are all here to learn and not say bad words.
yeah, racist stuff. Ah, man, I had good news and I can't remember what it was because we got into
Oh shoot.
all this other stuff. Um, gosh. I wish I could find it. I'm looking through my newsfeed right now, trying to find what it was because I was like, oh, that would make great news. Oh well, you know what? This time you'll have to forgive us.
The
just
good
don't
news
have
is that you guys are here with us.
The good news is
It's a
I
it's
survived.
that you
Yes.
survived roofing, and you guys are listening,
Yeah.
and it's a beautiful day. Go out there and get it done.
Thank you so much. We will talk to you guys in 1 week. 1 week. Take care of each other.